Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, the ACC Championship is in the books. The playoff is set. What do you think? Tight 25 minutes, quick recap, quick playoff preview, and we're good and we're out of here, right?
Yeah, it should be nice and easy. I've never complained about anything in my life more than I'm about to complain on this podcast.
Yeah, nothing really all that newsworthy to see here.
No.
Just couple newsworthy items.
Just good old-fashioned college football BS.
Oh, we got time. We're gonna deep dive here. Mike, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, ACC championships in the books. Florida State, your ACC champions, 13-0, finished the season undefeated. Great season for the Seminoles. The playoff selections are in. We'll talk about those. Bowl lineup is here, and there was a process that got there. We'll talk about that. We've got a little bit of news we got to get to. We've got some things to discuss in this show. Before we do that, first off, we are live right now. Sunday night is a couple minutes after 10:30 on the East Coast. We're live, youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast. Really appreciate the folks here in the chat already. Got it going, helping to steer the discussion, helping to join in. So thank you to those folks. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell icon if you have not already. Really appreciate the folks that have done that. The number of people that have done that throughout the season has been incredible, and again, we really appreciate your all support. Otherwise, if you're watching it after the fact, go hit that subscribe button. That'd be great too.
Yeah, it would be. If you don't like what you hear tonight, that's tough. I mean, that's tough. We got to air a few grievances.
Yeah.
We're both kind of shocked that Louisville didn't make it in the field, I think. Right? So,
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what a Kentucky loss will do to you is
right.
And Pitt, honestly.
Yeah.
Pitt fired the super weapon.
Yeah, the results on the field mattered there.
Yeah, games matter, Mike. That's a founding principle of this sport, right?
Adam Parker already chiming in, take it up with the committee if you have an issue. Oh, don't you worry. That was very funny. But yes, don't you worry.
Mike, we agreed before we hit the button to record and go live here. We have to talk about the ACC championship game first, because if we don't, it won't get talked about.
It won't happen.
So let's start here. Saturday night in Charlotte, the number 4 Florida State Seminoles 16, the number 14 Louisville Cardinals 6.
What was that, Joey? Number 4 what?
I'm just reading what ESPN is telling me.
But before winning a conference championship, number 4 Florida State. 16.
Duly noted.
Yes.
They were number 4.
6.
They won a conference title, and they fell in the rankings. We'll come to find out. Spoiler alert, if you weren't aware of what we were going to say here. Yeah, Florida State 16, Louisville 6. Mike, in a game that I think the best way I can probably describe this to start with is my parents are in Key West right now, and my dad texted me. My dad texted me right after the second half kicked off. Said, just getting back to the room, getting the TV on, what did I miss? And I said, nothing unless you're trying to get really pissed off watching Jack Plummer play quarterback. It was 3-0 at halftime. Nothing happened in the first half. This was as much of a defensive struggle, rock fight game as I can remember in recent memory.
It went pretty much as I anticipated. I bet the under.
Mm-hmm.
That
was not a sweat.
It was not a sweat. I ended up placing that bet after I found out that Brock Glenn might be starting this game, which that news broke on Friday. That I guess it's Tate Rodemaker. I've been calling him Tate Rodemaker. Everybody's calling him Tate Rodemaker, so maybe I was just pronouncing his name wrong. But when we found out that he probably wasn't going to play, or at the very least was a game-time decision with that concussion he suffered last week, I was thinking, okay, Florida State still might win this game, but it's going to be a slugfest. And lo and behold, it was. A defensive struggle for sure. Florida State had a lot of trouble moving the ball, which not a huge surprise. Louisville's got a good run defense, and Florida State really had trouble running against it because they were playing with a third-string quarterback, and it was pretty clear that they were going to try to run it a bunch because that's what you do when when you have a true freshman making his first collegiate start in the conference title game. That's when you run the ball.
And Louisville knew that, and so Louisville is, of course, going to dare you to throw it. And honestly, I felt like if I could sum up the Florida State game plan, it was don't allow Brock Glenn to be in a position to maybe turn the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was as safe and simple as it could be. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just, obviously it worked. They won the game. But Florida State did very little of anything that was, like, risky, dangerous, kind of going for it. It was as conservative as could be, and it worked, and it makes sense why. But Louisville is also good enough that they kept it close and they hung in there for the entirety of this game on defense, especially.
Yeah, Louisville just offensively couldn't do anything, right? Florida State's defense was spectacular. Mm-hmm. Really
both
freaking good.
Were really good.
Both
Florida State's
defenses.
Was outstanding.
Florida State's was outstanding. Exactly right. This is a Louisville team that could really run the ball well all year, no matter who was carrying it, Isaac Garendo or Jawar Jordan, whoever was carrying the ball, they were able to rack up a lot of rushing yards against a lot of really quality opponents, and they could not do that against Florida State. Florida State loaded the box, as we anticipated. They made Jack Plummer try to beat them, as we anticipated. He could not, as we anticipated. You picked Louisville in this game for non-football reasons, but purely for the football reasons, we both kind of had the same idea. A successful game for Florida State was going to be making Jack Plummer throw the ball on him to win. Mm-hmm. He couldn't do it. He flat out couldn't do it. And that just kind of confirms what we all thought. He's just another guy, Joey. He's just another guy.
Man, and honestly, the way that this game went, I think if Jack Plummer had his best game, Louisville maybe could have won this. It was there. If Jack Plummer was absolutely on his game, playing at his very best, he was far from it, Mike. Jack Plummer was all over the place in this game. Inaccurate throws, poor decisions, underthrowing on deep routes. I just found myself getting more and more angry, basically, watching Louisville's offense at how bad Jack Plummer looked in this game.
Yeah.
This is some of the worst that I've seen him play. And that's accounting for context of, again, Florida State's defense was phenomenal. Their defensive line, their defensive front was just abusing a pretty good Louisville offensive line all game long. When Florida State comes up with 7 sacks in this game, at some point, Jack Plummer is just a limited player. He is only ever so good as a quarterback. He's 6 years into college. He's one of the oldest guys on the field.
Yep.
At some point, that's all he is. And, can I get mad at him because he can't throw a deep ball particularly well? No. He's 23, and at this point, clearly God did not make his body in a way that, makes him able to throw the ball down the field very well. It's just some of this stuff is he just is who he is. I can't get mad about it. So, and yet I do. I don't know.
Like I mentioned, Joey, I've mentioned this in the past. What do you, me, and Jack Plummer have in common?
None of us got to win this weekend.
That's right, and we're all going pro in something other than sports.
Other than sports.
He was
That's right.
He was 14 of 36 for 111 yards and an interception. He was not good enough.
Man, and that interception
was not, so rough. So rough. We've mentioned this before too, Joey. There are not many good interceptions, but there are certainly some really bad ones.
Yeah, there are. Oh my gosh, and the way that we can get to that. So just a little bit on the way that this game went. Mike, do you know how many first downs there were combined between the two teams on the first 9 possessions of this game?
Not a lot. It was, as Joe Tessitore called it, a punt fest.
That's a perfect word to describe it.
Yep.
Because these two teams combined for 1 first down on the first 9 possessions of this game. It was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 4 and out, 3 and out, 4 and out turnover on downs, 3 and out, 3 and out, before finally. And by the way, after all of that, Florida State gets the ball, and we're still in the first quarter. We've changed possessions 9-10 times, and we're still in the first quarter. Then Florida State goes 11 plays, 50 yards, kicks a field goal. There's a little bit more motion, but anyways, it's 3-0 at halftime. Coming out at halftime, 3 and out for Florida State, 13 plays, 56 yards, field goal for Louisville.
Lawrence Tolafili.
Yeah, Lawrence
Wildcat.
Tolafili. Casual 2-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. Both plays snapped to the running back.
The only offense we saw all night was courtesy of Lawrence Tolafili.
Nobody's really sure why they didn't just keep doing that. It seemed like it worked pretty well, those 2 plays.
They kept doing it. Maybe they'd be in the playoff. Just kidding.
Too soon.
Yeah, well,
Too soon.
Just kidding. No, we'll get to it.
Here's the thing that was crazy to me, Mike, is that Louisville works it down. They had first and goal at the 7. Maurice Turner, no gain. Jack Plummer, incomplete. I thought he was sacked at some point. So he completes one to Jamari Thrash, loss of 9. Anyways, they kick a field goal. It's 10-6. Florida State goes 3 and out, and they're going to punt, Mike. And this is, by the way, just while we're doing this is the Go ACC moment of the week.
Yes, this was rough.
Florida State lines up to punt from their own 23-yard line. Yeah, Scott's just on top of it here. Florida State lines up to punt from their own 23-yard line. And watching the replay, I'm like, why is the punter standing halfway between the hash mark and the numbers?
Fair question.
I don't think I have ever seen this. They snap it to him. I don't know that it was a fully clean reception, but between the time that the ball took to get there and the time it took for the punter to kind of get the ball and really feel comfortable with it, Louisville has multiple defenders that come in totally unblocked. And you could call this a blocked punt, except he never even tried to kick it. It's just a sack, basically.
He just got drilled.
He just got tackled for an 11-yard loss, and it's now a turnover on downs, and Louisville has the ball on the 12-yard line going in, right? So, number one, Go ACC Moment of the Week. Go ACC to Florida State for just, what are we doing on the punt team? Playing 5D chess, you should just be playing checkers. It's a punt team. Why are we lining up 6 bodies to the left of the snapper? I don't know what we're doing.
Unintelligent football play.
Not intelligent. No. So then Louisville gets the ball. They're on the 12-yard line. And it's like, this is your chance. You're down 4.
Except.
First play, Jack Plummer floats one. It's honestly a pretty good throw to the back corner of the end zone. Nate Kuriski comes down with it. It came out. Might have been intercepted by Tatum Bethune.
Don't worry, Tatum Bethune. Don't you worry.
I think they probably got it right with an incompletion there. Second play, Jawar Jordan for 1. Third play, Jack Plummer into the end zone, straight into the gut of Tatum Bethune.
So bad. That's why I said, don't worry, Tatum Bethune. Don't worry. You'll have your opportunity.
I think I heard, was it Jesse Palmer on the broadcast?
It was Tessitore and Jesse Palmer.
I'm not sure if my least favorite person on the broadcast was Jack Plummer or Jesse Palmer, because both of those guys.
Joe Tessitore wasn't on that list?
Oh, I love Joe Tess. I'll take him. That's just fine.
Oh, really? Okay. Right.
I'm fine with Joe Tess. He was like, oh, well, if Jack Plummer just led him a little bit. Dude, looked like he led Tatum Bethune. Bethune had him covered up and then some on that. One of the most mind-numbing things I think I saw, at least all of yesterday, if not most of this season. I mean, that was an awful throw, awful decision. I don't know what he saw or didn't see.
Yeah.
But intercepted in the end zone. And so at that point, I texted you guys. I was like, if he lines up and takes a knee, if he lines up and spikes it, it's probably a 3 points for Louisville, and it's a 1-point game. And instead, you just threw it into the teeth of the defense, turnover, and that was kind of the last chance that Louisville really had in this game. Florida State works it down. They kick a couple field goals, especially after Louisville turns it on downs late. Yeah, I don't have a lot here. Florida State's defense, again, played their tails off. They were incredible from start to finish in this game. I remember the first snap of the game, if I'm not mistaken, Braden Fiskey, like shoots through unblocked and blows up a play for a loss of like 6. They were in Louisville's backfield all night long. They clearly were prepared to do the job they had to do against a pretty good Louisville offense and a good coaching staff. And Louisville had no answers. Huge win for Florida State. Thought they were really good in this game, and did as much as they could have. Again, Brock Glenn, you're not going to ask him to do a whole lot. He didn't, but Florida State did enough to win this game and win it by 2 scores.
I just want to mention this. It's a testament to how good Florida State is that they had a true freshman quarterback make his first start in the conference title game, and they still found a way to win against a good Louisville team.
By double digits.
That is supposed to be a feather in your cap.
Should be, shouldn't it?
Well, at least they got an ACC championship out of it. You know, that's good.
That's all they got out of it.
Louisville was 3 for 18 on third down. Florida State was 2 for 16 on third down. We're not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that it was an offensive masterpiece. It certainly was not that. Okay? We're not going to insult your intelligence like other people insulted our intelligence this weekend.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, I mean, what this boiled down to for me is Florida State had Lawrence Toafili.
And that one drive.
Louisville did not stop him for 2 plays, and that was it. That was the game, you know? Florida State could have not scored again, and they would have won the game. Mm-hmm. Louisville had no answers offensively. Florida State's defense was really, really good. Louisville's defense also good, but I'll tell you what, Louisville probably doesn't have this kind of success if Jordan Travis is playing quarterback. I think Louisville's got a good defense, but they're not holding Florida State to 16 points and just a little over 200 yards of offense if Jordan Travis is behind center. And unfortunately for Florida State, Jordan Travis is not healthy, right? That became a crutch for a conversation we're going to have in a minute. So yeah. I want to wrap this up because I ultimately, congrats to Florida State, 13-0, ACC champions. I'm not sure how much that's going to mean in a couple years. I'm a little bit concerned about the state of the ACC coming out today. Not that I wasn't concerned before, but I think this was like a sound the alarms situation. But it's always good to win your conference title. Not trying to water it down, right? So shout out to Florida State, 13-0, not easy to do. Win the last 2 against good defenses with a backup quarterback and then a third-string quarterback.
True freshman third-string quarterback.
True freshman third-string quarterback in your 2 most important games of the year, right? Your rivalry game against Florida. It's not the best team you played, but it's a rivalry game on the road in the swamp with a backup. You go and win that game pretty convincingly with the way you pulled away in the second half. And then you go into the ACC title game with your third-string true freshman quarterback making his first start, and you find a way to win. Mm-hmm. That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
Yeah. I very impressed with Florida State. And again, I think there's probably something to, in a weird way, I'm not sure that Florida State's defense would have played this well if Jordan Travis were healthy and playing this game. I feel like Florida State's defense showed up and kind of knew the assignment here.
Yeah.
And they were extra dialed in.
I think that's a fair point.
They have not looked like this all year long. That was about as good a defensive performance as I've seen from almost anybody all year. All 3 levels. I mean, the secondary was sticking to Louisville's receivers all night. Again, the pass rush and such. I mean, they were in Louisville's backfield the entire game, basically. So just very, very impressed by Florida State's defense. I thought Louisville's defense played very well, even with, the freshman quarterback and whatever. They hung in this game, and Louisville's defense is the reason that this thing didn't get out of control either. So both teams defensively good. We called for a rock fight. And by the way, the one thing that we need to call out specifically here is mentioned this in passing on the preview that Tate Rodemaker might not play. He did not.
Bro, he went back into that game in the swamp.
I know. He went back into the game.
After he got skull-effed into the turf. Literally.
And who was it? Who was the broadcaster on that broadcast that was like, oh, it was Herbie.
It was her. Yeah, it was Kirk Herbstreit.
It was
I
Herbstreit.
have. He's on my list. It's rare that I say that. He's on my list.
We need to talk about Kirk Herbstreit later.
I'm going to. I love Kirk Herbstreit. I love him. I don't love him today.
Praising him for the toughness to go back in that game, whatever. And if I remember correctly in that broadcast, there was never really even a question of like, are we sure he's okay? Like, we sure the medical staff gave a proper evaluation, whatever. Yeah, yeah. Came out. It was we recorded on Wednesday. I think it was Thursday morning. Rumors started floating that Tate Rodemaker might not be playing in this game, and sure enough, he didn't have pads on by the time that he had the opening kickoff. So, yeah, that's how Florida State ends up with a third-string true freshman quarterback in the ACC championship game, and they won, and nobody cares apparently.
Yep.
So, Florida State 16, Louisville 6, the Noles ACC champions. I feel like I might have picked that in the preseason, but again, I'm kind of maybe a little bit warped opinion on what I picked or what I didn't. So, in any case, not what I picked on Wednesday, by the way.
Yeah, I gave you hell for that too.
I mean, I was right, but I was also wrong. I was wrong that Louisville was going to win this game on Saturday. I was right that the ACC is going to get left out of the playoff.
Oh, talk about threading a needle.
So with that, Mike, should we talk about what happened earlier today?
Let's do it.
So, last night, Florida State wins the ACC championship, and I believe I tweeted out, "This is easy," right?
That's because it was, Joey.
It was. This is easy. Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Power 5 undefeated conference champions in the playoff. Other two conference champions, Texas, Alabama. Texas beat Alabama. Texas in the playoff. There's your four. That's it. Don't have to make this hard. This is actually very simple.
That would be simple.
It would be simple.
That's correct. That would be simple.
Noon Eastern, ESPN comes on. They announce.
ESPN came on. That's real important. Well, ESPN, real important part of this discussion.
Keep in mind, ESPN. Yep. ESPN came on. Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama.
What?
Mike, what was your initial reaction when you saw that, heard that? Well, I mean, and before is this the point where we should probably let the people know that this might not be as family-friendly a show? We might start using some colorful language here. So just fair warning to everybody listening after the fact. It's 10 p.m. Central Time that I'm lost. Like, I doubt your kids are watching this at this point, but just for fair warning, both of us are extremely frustrated about this. So there might be some colorful language coming. So if you're listening to this like in the daycare drop-off line or, with kids in the car, maybe come back to this one a little bit later. Just fair warning before we get into this. So, Mike, that being said,
that was nice of you. Noble.
Thank you. Trying to remember and take care of people.
Also, we're sponsored by several different. We're thankful for Home Field, Section 103, and Vivid Seats' partnerships. That's all I'm going to say on this podcast this evening. We're thankful for their partnerships. Nice shirt.
Brand new Section 103, blessed by Section 103 this weekend. Shout out to Steven. Super comfy. I love it. So.
Yeah, Adam said get the sponsorships out now. That's correct. Yeah, we're definitely doing that. We're going to do that. I will say, Steven from Section 103, I know he will not be offended by this discussion. Certainly.
Steven agrees with this. Steven agrees with this. Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. All sorts of wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. They're going to the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. So if you need something to support the team down there, go do that. Scherzies, NIL, support for Haynes King, Dante Smith, Zach Pyron, Miles Kelly, basketball team, volleyball team, baseball team. Lots of stuff there. Official Tech Gold, all the official word marks. Anything you need, Georgia Tech fandom, go to section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Keep an eye on their social medias because last week the basketball team beat number 21 Mississippi State. And that was good for 21% off your order for about 24 hours afterwards. So, keep an eye on their social medias to know of any upcoming deals. I got this shirt in the mail on Friday. It came with a shirt for my little boy and a onesie for my little girl. So there will be pictures coming in the near future as well. So, keep it tuned there. Lots of stuff for the whole family. Anything you need to support Georgia Tech, section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order.
Now's the time where I answer your question.
Yeah, I think so. So, Mike, at that point, 12:15 Eastern, we find out Florida State's out of the playoff. What's your first thought, first reaction?
I tweeted it right as it happened. The games don't matter.
No, they don't.
The games don't matter. I mean, I was texting you and Scott about this. I was tweeting it a little bit this morning, before the announcement. The committee had a decision to make today, right? And for 9 years, first 9 years of the college football playoff, regardless of what the committee said, they always put in the 4 most deserving teams based on their resume. Always did. It's the reason, Joey, why 12-0 Cincinnati made a college football playoff. It's the reason why a Group of 5 team made a college football playoff. It's because they put in the 4 most deserving teams. Nobody is ever going to argue that the 4 best teams, of those 4, one of them is going to be a Group of 5 team that plays in the American. Or Cincinnati's in the Big 12 now. But nobody's ever really going to make that.
Well, people will make the argument if it suits them and their particular team and their particular purpose that, they're looking for the 4 best teams, Mike. They want the 4 best teams. So that's why Georgia should have been in the playoff this year, right?
So I'm going to bring up this point that my Hokie Hangover podcast co-host Ricky LeBlue brought up, because I know he's listening. He just dropped a comment in that was very funny in the chat. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. Florida State should have just won more games.
Yeah. They didn't win enough games, Mike.
Joey made a really important point on the podcast that I recorded just before this one.
Ricky made an important point.
Yes.
Joey's right here.
Oh, sorry. Did I say Joey? Ricky. Ricky, I apologize. Ricky made a really important point. He said that, okay, for eye test, right, we're going to put Alabama in, and we're going to leave Florida State out because Jordan Travis is hurt. So if we're doing eye test, right?
Did it work last week when they barely beat Auburn on 4th and 31?
We discussed that, but not only that, does your eye test really tell you that Florida State's a better team than Georgia?
Thank you.
No.
I was thinking the same thing. It doesn't. It's just smiting Florida State even more.
It doesn't. and the other thing I want to add, because I know we're going to bounce around a little bit here, right? But if we're talking about the 4 best teams in college football, right, and we're going to say, oh, okay, this is eye tests. These are the 4 best teams in college football, right? It's Michigan, it's Washington, it's Texas, and it's Alabama. Those are the 4 best teams. Guys, in my opinion, I know Georgia just lost to Alabama yesterday. I know Georgia was just kind of in a little bit of a dogfight a week ago against Georgia Tech. I think Georgia's one of the best 4 teams in college football. So if we're doing this, if we're going to talk, and a lot of people would, right? So if we're going to do this whole thing about, we're talking about eye tests, and this is the 4 best teams, we still got it wrong, in my opinion. We still got it wrong. The committee doesn't know what they're evaluating this year. That's flat out. For 9 years, it was 4 most deserving teams, and this year it was, the SEC might be left out of the playoff. Mm-hmm. We're ESPN, and we made up this whole college football playoff bullshit. We concocted this whole TV thing. It's this big TV extravaganza starting in mid-October until today, the first Sunday in December when they announce the final rankings. They're evaluating which teams are going to get them the best ratings, and it's especially important that they get an SEC team into the college football playoff when ESPN owns the TV rights moving forward. That is not lost on me that's a big reason why Alabama's in the college football playoff. And if you're going to argue otherwise, I'm sorry. I disagree. And that's not to say that Alabama is not a deserving team in the college football playoff. Joey, Alabama could win the entire thing. They could win the entire thing. Joey, an incredible win against Georgia yesterday. The way they looked for 3.5 quarters of that game, they were getting beat up. I was telling Scott, because Scott and I were watching this, they were getting beat up at the line of scrimmage early in that game, right? And then it just kind of turned.
Yeah.
It just kind of turned. And Alabama just started figuring some things out.
Seemed like they started leveraging a little bit of the Georgia Tech game plan from the week before, but that's neither here nor there. That's fine.
Right. Started playing a lot better, and they came out with one of the most impressive wins in college football this year. Mm-hmm. I refuse to agree with the committee that's the best win in college football this year. Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC title because Georgia. It was impressive. Joey, I was told by the committee today that Alabama's win over Georgia is one of the best wins of the season because Georgia was the best team in the country. Oh, wait a minute. We're ranking the 4 best teams, aren't we? Georgia's the best team in the country, I was told. Why they're not in the playoff? I'm confused.
They're not? Oh, yeah. They're not.
What? This is all for TV. It's fine. Let's just admit it. It's all for television. And if they were going to do this right, if they were going to pick a year to do it, this was the year to do it. Because you know what they can say now on the back end? They can say, you know what? This is why we need to expand the college football playoff. Because one of the teams was unjustly left out of the field, so now we can expand the playoff. This is the reason why we have to do it.
I think one of the most mind-numbing things I heard, and I really don't. I try not to call these guys out, or I don't think lowly of these guys. But I was listening to the Solid Verbals recap from last night, and it was last night, so they did not have all the information of what was going to happen today. But they were trying to reason their way through different scenarios, and I think it was Ty Hildenbrandt who brought up the idea that, like, well, if we're negotiating between Alabama and Texas, well, yeah, I mean, Texas beat Alabama, but like if you look at the losses, like Alabama lost to playoff team Texas, and Texas lost to Oklahoma. It's like, that's the point.
It's decided on the field. Joey, how many teams have gone into Tuscaloosa in the Nick Saban era and beaten Alabama by double digits? How many teams have done that?
Almost
Not
none
many.
of them.
And I'll tell you what, even less have done it in the non-con. Texas goes in and beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa by 2 scores, and Adam Parker's right. Beat their ass.
That wasn't fluky. That was convincing.
Beat the piss out of them in the second half. Mm-hmm. Beat their brains in up front. And
but that was in September.
But that was in September. That's right.
Allegedly, that doesn't matter.
Because eye test, as we found out today, only matters in the final week of the season. No, not the final week of the regular season. Championship week. That's the only time that it matters.
Which brings us back to freaking Kirk Herbstreit, who 5 minutes after this on the broadcast of the thing is like, well, we have to consider what these teams looked like in the last 2 to 3 weeks.
No, we don't.
You're right, Kirk. No. We do, because that has always been a criteria of the playoff, is what did they look like in the last 2 to 3 weeks. That's every year we talk about that, right? Every year. We always bring that up. Oh, well, at least when it's convenient, I guess we do. Or at least when it validates putting the SEC team in over the other deserving teams. That's when we bring it up. So that's a criteria. Yeah.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because the last 2 or 3 weeks Alabama hasn't looked particularly convincing, have they? They
beat Auburn, Mike, on the road.
4th and 31. Great throw by Milroe, not taking anything away from him. Made a big time play.
Well, but Auburn was playing phenomenal football coming into that game.
They're bad.
Isaiah Bond back at the end zone. Like you mentioned, Auburn was playing phenomenal football coming into that game against Alabama.
Kept it close against New Mexico State the week before.
They did. They only lost by 3 scores against a team that didn't even win Conference USA. That's correct.
In their own building.
at home. The week before, not in September, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Auburn lost by 3 touchdowns at home to New Mexico State. 21 points to New Mexico State. In a lot of SEC programs, I know it's Hugh Freeze's first year, at a lot of SEC programs, that's a fireable offense. Alabama almost lost to that team 7 days later.
They were a tipped pass from losing that
But
game.
but you know what? We forget, Joey. But we forget about all that because Alabama beat Georgia on Saturday. We forget about all that. Kirk Herbstreit, you will not find a bigger Kirk Herbstreit fan than myself. I love Kirk Herbstreit. We've talked about on this podcast before. We've talked about how
Super
impressed
nice
you
dude.
and I.
Met him one time. Super
Scott,
nice guy.
we brought up on either the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. Super
Has a
nice
great dog.
guy. Great. Ben's a legend. Herbstreit is
Ben the dog.
incredible. Incredible color commentator. Really, really good at his job. Nobody works harder in college football than Kirk Herbstreit, right? All that to say, Kirk's full of shit. Kirk talking about Alabama and why they should be in and Jordan Travis being hurt and that's why they should be out. That's real interesting and real convenient because he wasn't saying any of that in 2014 when his alma mater was on their 3rd-string quarterback and they snuck into the playoff and went on to win the whole thing. That's why the games matter. That's why you have to decide the games on the field.
He specifically said in 2014 when apparently Florida State fans were mad at, I don't know, whatever he was saying on the broadcast back then or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Look, just win all your games and you're in.
Right.
Where's that energy, Kirk?
So frustrating.
Where did that go?
And the thing about and the thing that frustrates me too is like people try, and I've already seen people on social media when I brought this up try to poo-poo it. When I bring up 2014 Ohio State that won with Cardell, they try to poo-poo it because they're like, look at what Ohio State did to Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game. And I'm like, wait a minute. Let's talk about what Ohio State did in September. They lost to 6-win Virginia Tech in Columbus. It was one of the worst losses of the year by any playoff team, right? And they're talking about, 59-0. That's why they're in. Yeah, that is why they got in. They beat an offensively challenged Wisconsin team, and they ran all over them. Awesome. That's great. I'm glad they did that. And then they won the whole thing with Cardell Jones, and they were a deserving champion. They got a chance with one really bad loss in September. If Ohio State had lost that game in November, they wouldn't have made the college football playoff. That's what's wrong with this.
Horrible loss.
Horrible loss.
Such a bad loss. Who did they lose to again?
Virginia Tech.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Go Hokies.
6-win Virginia Tech that lost to East Carolina the next week.
Make it make sense.
Don't remind me, Mike. Don't remind me.
I mean, are we going to ignore the fact that, again, did the offense look great yesterday? No. Did Michigan's offense look great yesterday? No. Did Florida State's defense hold a decidedly good Louisville offense to under 200 yards and 6 points and keep them out of the end zone? Yeah. Again, it's. Did Florida State's offense look awesome with a true freshman 3rd-string starting quarterback? No. But, what would you expect there? And, again, Tate Rodemaker would be back in a month playing a playoff game. So if you're just, trying to guess, what would they look like, that's bad logic.
I brought this up online. If Jordan Travis got hurt last night instead of 2 weeks ago, they'd probably get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you saw the
they
tweet,
should have lied. They should have lied about his injury. They should have said he would have been he was week to week.
you
They
saw
should've
the
lied about
tweet
it.
from Jordan Travis, basically
Himself, yeah.
he stated,
Poor guy.
I feel bad that I got injured at the time that I did.
Also, he
Are
should
you
win the
kidding
Heisman because
me?
of that. The playoff committee says he's the best player ever to carry his team. He should win the Heisman.
Yeah. I am so irritated at the way that this has gone down. And what's funny is that this kind of got mentioned, I think, earlier in the day, and Cam was actually messaging us on Twitter about this a little bit, I think. Hi, Cam. But it didn't really sink in for quite a while that of all the teams in the ACC that this could happen to, it is objectively hilarious that it's happening to Florida State after all of the nonsense last summer
It is pretty funny.
If there's one team that
Yeah.
I could hope that this would happen to, it would be Florida State. Yes.
Without a doubt.
And yet,
Miami close second. Just,
yeah.
Hi, Cam.
And yet, I am still objectively pissed off at this. I think somewhat from an ACC standpoint, somewhat from just like a college football governance standpoint. And also,
slope.
how many times on this podcast through the years have I told you that something really, really pisses me off when it feels like it is insulting my intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this feels like a direct insult to me, the fan, and the consumer of college football. And again, this is easy. It's easy. Michigan, Washington, Florida State, undefeated Power 5 conference champions. 2 others, Texas beat Alabama. Done. That's your 4. And do I think that Florida State had a chance to win a game, much less win the whole tournament? No, but that's not the point.
No one thought
Games have
TCU
to
was going to
matter.
win last year, and
Nobody
did.
thought TCU was going to win last year.
Beat Michigan and got ripped limb for limb in the national title game, but it doesn't matter because they were clearly a team that was supposed to be there. Everybody was saying TCU wasn't supposed to be there until TCU went and beat Michigan and looked pretty convincing doing it in the second half, by the way. That's why you play the games.
That's why you change your signs before the playoff game. Oh, sorry, what?
What? Oh, by the way, this is the circling back to your point about Michigan, right? David Hale tweeted this today, and I thought this was really good. You know, how Michigan struggled against Iowa, and I know you were indirectly referencing this, Joey, so I'm going to just bring this up on the podcast.
Yeah.
Iowa had, none of us, the 3 of us know, Iowa has a phenomenal defense, right? No question about it. Michigan had fewer yards against Iowa than the following teams: Utah State, Iowa State, Western Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and Nebraska. By the way, Michigan also at full strength offensively, for the most part. They're a little banged up front, but they have all their skill players and their quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Less yards than all those teams I just mentioned. Several of those teams are not going bowling, okay?
Mm-hmm.
David Hale mentions, I'm not saying Michigan shouldn't be in. I'm saying only one team is being held to the how good did your offense look standard. Michigan, Washington, and Florida State should all be in. They won every game. 1,000% agree. 1,000% agree. By the way, Florida State has a better, outside of one really, really huge win against a Ohio State team that is just lost in all of this, by the way. I don't think Ohio State should have been in the playoff, but they're just like the forgotten one-loss team. Like, they're like not one of the top 6 teams in the country. It's a fucking farce.
When I saw I think it was when I saw Georgia slot in at number 6 on the broadcast this morning, I was like, are we going to get is
that
Ohio
rate,
State going to randomly be dropped in here? Because everyone's kind of just forgotten about them entirely.
Like, if they're leaving Florida State out, like, just put them at 7. Like, why are they putting them at 5? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right, because if we're really doing it if you're doing it based on eye test and the best teams, and Florida State doesn't have Jordan Travis on a neutral field, I'm not taking Florida State over Ohio State. I'm not taking Florida State over Georgia. There are all these teams. I'm not sure I take Florida State over any of these teams on a neutral field without Jordan Travis. They have a really good defense, but you got to get into a slugfest, and then you got to hope that Tate Rodemaker's going to make some plays in the passing game. What are we doing here? And that's why Florida State was left out, because the TV exec said, you know what, they don't have a prayer against a team like Michigan. But Florida State has a better resume than Michigan does. They have a better resume. They have more top 25 wins. They actually scheduled difficult non-conference teams. They had 2 SEC teams bookending their schedule. Florida State opened up against LSU, beat the piss out of them. They went to Florida in the swamp with their backup quarterback, looked dominant doing it in the second half, really good defensively. Offense found their footing as the game went on. They win that game. They win with a true freshman in the conference title game making his first start. They find a way to win against a good Louisville team, a 10-win Louisville team in year 1 under Jeff Brom. We didn't mention this during that recap, but great year for Louisville. Like, I know they got the bowl game and all that, but great first year for Louisville. 10 wins. They go and beat that team in the conference title game. Who did Michigan play in the non-con? Who'd they play?
I mean, they played Bowling Green, who establishes a quality loss for Georgia Tech. So there's that.
So
but
it's got to be a quality. It's got to be a quality win for Michigan then.
Can I? All right. I don't know who this is. A. Johnson Goat. Y'all salty for no reason. Florida State would be in with a quarterback, plain and simple.
I'm not sure they would.
Hey, you're right. Florida State messed up by putting Jordan Travis's leg in 3 places. Like that.
He should have broken his leg earlier, like he mentioned in his Instagram post today.
Yeah, he should have broken it earlier, or Florida State should have run the "don't break your quarterback's leg" play against North Alabama.
Yeah,
that's their mistake. That's the thing that they did poorly. So screw Florida State for running that play. So one of the things I do want to mention is, again, people want to go to this. We want the 4 best teams. We want the 4 best teams. And Florida State, not one of the best teams, and I don't think Florida State would beat Michigan. I don't think they would have a chance against Washington or Texas, so we shouldn't put them in the playoff. And as you mentioned, Mike, we use this term 4 best teams. It's not ever actually been we're looking for the 4 best teams. Because if we had, again, TCU would not have been in last year. Cincinnati would not have gotten in a few years ago. Like, if you want the 4 best teams, you're probably just going to get 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams every year.
Well, you got 2 Big Ten and 2 SEC teams this year, Joey.
Yeah, that whole ESPN needs the SEC in there. Look at who the 3 seed is. That's a future SEC team. How about that, Mike? What the metric system that we always go to on this show? What is it?
A metric that we go to on the show?
Yeah, all the time. Bill Conley.
SP Plus.
SP Plus. You know who SP Plus says the top 4 teams are right now?
Tell me, Joey.
Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State. There's your playoff. Put those guys in. Let's see who's the best. Why don't we do that? Oh, sorry. Too many Big Ten teams. Kick Penn State out. Let's put in the number 5 team, Oregon. Looking for the best team, right?
See why we don't do this in a room full with 13 people?
Still too many Big Ten teams. Kick Ohio State out. Now we've got Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, and Texas. There we go. Why not? Looking for the best team. Vegas power ratings. Who's favored over who? That's all we need is who should be the better team on a neutral field. That's all that matters. Games don't matter. Vegas power ratings matter. That's it.
Yeah, the Vegas power ratings matter, which is why Oregon beat Washington on Friday night, right?
Yeah. 9.5-point favored Oregon wiped the floor with Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. That's right. That's why 5.5-point underdog Alabama lost to Georgia yesterday. Is because games don't matter. Just who's better matters.
Right. That's why Tulane is a 3-point favorite. Definitely beat SMU yesterday in the American Conference title game that nobody in this chat watched.
I mean, if we want to be real honest, Louisville was a favorite by kickoff of that game yesterday. Point is, Mike, nothing matters.
A. Johnson Goat, bring this comment out. I'm going to have a fucking aneurysm. Bring this up. FSU would be a bye week for Michigan, Washington, Texas, Bama, OSU, and Georgia. You know what? They might, but you don't know for sure. Can you tell me that 100%? Does not matter. The games on the field fucking matter. At some point, the games matter. I'm sorry. The games matter. At some point, the games have to matter. Or else 2014 Ohio State would not have won a national title, right?
I mean, you would have said that last year about TCU. And guess what they did? Beat Michigan. We already talked about this, A. Johnson Goat. Goodbye.
Made the national title.
If we're doing the BCS from years ago, and yesterday you saw Georgia lose, what would you have said? Georgia is eliminated. Because losses matter. Now, apparently they friggin' don't. They don't matter.
It's an invitational. It's not a playoff. That's the bottom line. It's an invitational. It's not a playoff. It's whoever the 13 people in that room, as currently constituted with the 14 playoff, it's what the 13 people in that room want to happen for television. That's it. That's all that this is about. The people saying like that, they can't leave the SEC out. Why not?
They should have.
Why not? I don't know, man.
I texted you guys this a little bit ago, and this is really kind of I think where I really boil this whole thing down to of why I think I'm so irritated. Get ready. Get ready. This is good. I think what this proves is that, Mike, nothing is earned in college football. Everything is given.
That's right.
And that is kind of the antithesis of one of the most core principles of the American society. Is right. That's where we're going. This is anti-American that undefeated Florida State was left out of the playoff in favor of Alabama, which again, anti-American that Alabama got in the playoff. That's kind of hilarious on its own right.
Yeah.
This is. I think the big overarching thing that I was thinking today was it has really become a lot the last 2 to 3 years of the number of times that I feel like the governance of this sport has failed the fans.
Yeah.
It is incredibly disappointing, frustrating, upsetting, whatever. How long do we keep going with this governance that basically marginalizes all but a dozen or so programs and logos and, whatever, before I don't care about college football anymore?
Yeah. Chad Bracey, Bama should have had a rematch with USF. That was a real nail-biter.
Sure was. I think USF almost made a bowl game.
Alabama 17, South Florida 7. Yep.
Arkansas also almost made a bowl game, almost fired their coach.
4-8.
Almost beat Alabama.
Alabama was losing at halftime to Tennessee. Alabama needed to convert on 4th and 31 to beat barely bowl-eligible Auburn.
Again, I have minimal interest, honestly, in defending the honor of Florida State. It's more about I guess somewhat defending the honor of the ACC, but also just again feeling like my intelligence is being insulted by the governance of this sport. It's ridiculous. It's unacceptable, and it's really, really irritating. Sorry, I misspoke. USF is in a bowl game. They're playing Syracuse. So we'll talk about them sooner than later. The one other thing I want to mention here, Mike, and this might kind of bridge the conversation into the bowl lineups that we got here. I'm really frustrated, honestly. If there's one individual that I'm really irritated with right now, it's Jim Phillips, commissioner of the ACC.
I think he's still trying to figure out where the bowl teams are going as we record at 11:28 p.m. Eastern time here on Sunday night. Are we still trying to figure out where ACC teams are going? Like that took all day today.
What a day for the ACC, looking like a bunch of incompetent schmucks between Florida State not getting in the playoff. That's not the ACC's fault. Well, guess who wasn't on College Game Day yesterday calling out Sesame Street references with the other conferences and such?
Yeah.
Greg Sankey was on the show. Jim Phillips was not. Where's Jim Phillips been? What does he do all day, Mike? I don't know. I have no clue.
The same guy who voted against expanding the playoff, that Jim Phillips, we could already had like an 8 or 12 team playoff. We could already had that. Which again, listen. I don't love the 4-team playoff. I don't love that we're going to 12. But this was set up to fail, man. Like,
yeah.
You have 5 power conferences, but only 4 teams are eligible to compete for the title. Like, you did this to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what expansion improves. I don't really get it. Okay, great. Now we have 12 teams getting in, right? And one group of 5 teams going to be represented, right? And that was like the big argument for a while with the expansion is like, when will a group of 5 team be represented? Okay, they're going to get representation in the 12-team format. Spectacular. You're also going to get 5 or 6 teams that don't deserve to be there. Flat out. Yeah. I don't think the argument is going, and I've already promised. I've promised.
We're trying
Ricky,
to get the 12 best teams, right?
I promised to Ricky and Andrew on my Hokie Hangover podcast earlier. I promised that I would not be stumping for the 12th team to make a playoff field unless it's Virginia Tech. I will make the exception there. I will not be stumping for the 12th and 13th team that's going like 9-3 to squeeze in and get boat raced in the first round in a road game, right? Because that's what's going to happen. They're going to play a road game. I don't care about that. Who cares?
12, 13, whatever. Like, that's all just participation trophies.
It's participation trophies, right? And at the end of the day, you're still going to have, like, the blue-chip recruit schools. Those are going to be the ones competing for a national championship, flat out. Like, that's going to be it. Those are going to be the most consistent participants in, like, the last 2 games of the year that matter. Like, those are going to be the schools there. So that's all frustrating. Back to your ACC point. I didn't mean to totally derail us. The bowl selection thing. What were we doing today? Like, why did it take all day?
So I think there were 3 things that played in here. And before we do that, number 1, Chad Bracey, Boo Corrigan, NC State's athletic director, who was the chair of the playoff committee. Chad says he needs a flat tire and an egged roof. I don't personally. I don't endorse this, but I do think it's noteworthy that Chad is suggesting that somebody should do this. I just I think that's interesting.
Wouldn't
and
it
Ricky,
be hilarious?
Yeah. Actually, sorry. And then Evan Sandage, he's not called Boo because he's doing a great job.
That's correct. That's very funny.
Nailed it.
That's a great point. Yes.
Nailed it. And then Ricky, can't tell if it's Jim Phillips or John Swafford.
Oh, God, Jesus.
I mean, honestly, I'd take Swafford at this point.
Oh, relax. Oh.
That's not an endorsement.
Let's grow up.
Not an endorsement.
Come on.
I think there were 3 things that happened today that led to this bowl selection fiasco, basically, that the conference dealt with for 6 hours or more. Number 1 was Florida State being left out of the playoff. I think that, and I saw a McMurphy tweet probably within the hour before they announced the playoff, was that there was like bowl gridlock that was entirely dependent on who was going to make the playoff and who wasn't. That he said that like 75% of the bowl games throughout the entire bowl season had not yet been determined because they were dependent on what was going to happen. It was all a trickle-down thing. So there was that, number 1. Number 2, from what I can gather, I don't fully understand this, but Notre Dame is like involved in the ACC's bowl tie-ins, but like they're not specifically tied in with it. And so like Jack Swafford, I guess, has to like sign off on whatever they're going to do, but maybe he didn't like the initial plan. And that's also related to the ACC no longer having like a real structured bowl assignment thing. It's kind of a collaborative bullshit thing. Like I don't know. And then
what was the bigger outrage today?
I'm mostly mad at the playoff thing, but then I'm just it just piles on. It's the cherry on top. Watching the conference being unable to assign its team to bowl games.
It
like,
simply
come on.
added. It simply just added to the frustration.
It
That's what I
did.
would say.
So then, from what I can tell, there was also a thing that happened late in the day. Kelly Quinlan, by the way, our friend, Georgia Tech coverage from Rivals, he was sitting at Georgia Tech for like an hour waiting on Brett Key's press conference, which is supposed to start at 5 Eastern. Didn't start until I think almost 6 Eastern because Georgia Tech was initially slotted for the Birmingham Bowl, got reassigned to the Gasparilla Bowl because Duke had been slotted for the Gasparilla Bowl but couldn't have a rematch against UCF, who they played last year in their bowl game, which just, what are we doing? I'm, again, so irritated at just this whole conference looks like an absolute friggin' clown show today. And I just I don't want to talk about it. I don't know, man. Like, I'm so annoyed.
Back to the Philip Swafford thing, because there's a comment from my co-host. Love to hear Mike try to convince me there's a real difference between Phillips and Swafford. Only one of those two guys got the ACC into their terrible TV contract.
Phillips hasn't even done that. Like,
well, he hasn't gotten him out of it.
Phil, what has Phillips done in
Absolutely nothing.
4 years?
He's done absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
He's done absolutely nothing. I just had to.
My guy's sitting on his thumb all day. Like, I don't know, man.
He's a Big Ten guy. He's not an ACC guy.
Oh, he formed the
Ten guy.
alliance. That went well.
That did go well. That's right around the time where he voted against college football playoff expansion, and then came out today wondering why Florida State got left out. We're all trying to figure out who did this. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I mean, Clemson and Florida State are so gonna leave. They're gonna figure it out, Joey. They're gonna figure it out. Like, the ACC is in some trouble here. I think that they're in some trouble. I know that it's grant of rights. It's binding. Florida State's gonna find the money, I think, and then once they do, Clemson will really find it. That's gonna be that.
I am genuinely curious to see how interested I am, or how much effort I put towards watching college football games next year. Just thinking on, like, oh yeah, we're going to have to also talk about SMU, Stanford, and Cal on this podcast.
It's frustrating.
Hey guys, did you realize that we have a ACC matchup on the bowl schedule right there? BC
God.
SMU.
Starting conference play early.
The real ACC championship game.
Yeah. So when is college football just going to become NFL minor and just like have one body so that we have a real playoffs and like everyone gets the same TV contract money and it just makes sense instead of like this conference picking off this team? Because like, why don't we just skip all this BS and go there?
A big reason why we love the sport but also simultaneously hate it is because none of it has ever made sense. None of it's ever made sense. I mean, the BCS was dumb, but at least we knew what the criteria were. We knew what polls went into it. We knew it was an average of several polls, and we had a general idea of what the rankings were going to come out to be. At least we had a general idea. This is just a hodgepodge of who the TV execs want to make them the most money. I mean, this is just like a joke.
Yeah, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw, but the simulated BCS account, it was Michigan, Washington, Bama, Florida State.
Fine.
No Texas. Even though Texas beat Bama head to head, no Texas. That's because, wonder why? That's because Texas lost to Oklahoma. That's the Ty Hildebrand argument. Ty Hildebrand went with the BCS argument, Joey. That's what happened there.
Texas lost to Oklahoma, but Alabama lost to Texas.
But Alabama lost to Texas. But Alabama's in because Alabama beat Georgia. That was the BCS, and that's why we have a playoff committee that's still screwing up.
I'm so tired. I'm so angry, and just it feels like these TV networks are taking something I love and ruining it.
That's correct. That's exactly what they're doing.
And I'm watching it in real time, and we see what they're doing, and we see that they're ruining it, and we know that they are. And there's just nothing we can do about it. Just watch this thing we love die.
And I look, especially now, I am I'm a Patriots fan, and they're 2-10. They lost again today, 6-0. They are a non-serious football team now.
What's that like?
The
Falcons beat the Jets 13-8, I believe. That was a real score.
Point being, my weekend revolves around college football Saturdays, and Sunday I have Red Zone on when I'm not busy with my kid, right? So it's one of those things where college football, I absolutely have to watch it. I need to watch it. NFL, I simply don't. Is there ever going to be a point of time where I get to such ignorance, right? I get like totally ambivalent about the state of college football that I just don't care to watch it. Like, when is that point? The problem is, like, we are complicit in it in a way. Like, Rick brought this up earlier. Like, we all complained about the BCS. Fair. At the time, we all complained about it. want the 14 playoff. Now I hate it. I was listening to Cover 3. Tom Fornelli said something very similar. He's like, I wanted the BCS to go away. Then we had the 14 playoff, and now I hate it. And we're going to expand. And he goes, I'm not going to like that very much either. So I want to go back to the BCS, which I do too. But you can't undo it.
I don't think that would be worse than what we have now.
It will absolutely not be worse than what we have now. I mean, nothing's going to change. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger from a monetary standpoint. I don't know. I don't know if there's a bubble that's going to burst when, like, TV networks say enough is enough. Like, you are not making us the money that makes it worth it for us to give you hundreds of millions of dollars to your conference to broadcast your games for the TV rights. Like, do they get to that point where there's just a bubble that bursts? I don't know. But by then, the damage is already done. Like, we're not going back to the Pac-12. We're not.
Nope.
And
nope.
I mean, you think about the USC teams in the mid-2000s, how good they were with Pete Carroll. You think about what a fantastic year the Pac-12 had this year. It's done. Like, it's done. They couldn't figure out a TV deal, so it's over. Now we have SMU from the American. We got Cal and Stanford from the Pac-12. We're going to be 3 ACC schools next year. And that's just like scratching the surface of all the other stuff that's going on. That's just like ACC specific because that's the podcast we do. I don't know how this gets better. Like, it's a slippery slope that the committee set today. The games do not matter. Only a couple games matter. And it's conference titles. And now that we're moving to 8 teams, the conference titles don't matter, with the exception of you really want to win one because you want to say you won one on the recruiting trail. That's the only reason why it's going to matter moving forward. It doesn't matter in terms of...
Why should recruits care?
Right. They want to know if we're going to compete for a national title or not. They're not going to care about what seed they are. They're not going to care.
The games don't matter. All that matters is what this committee thinks of you. That's it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't know why they didn't just put Georgia in.
And these aren't even the 12.
Georgia's one of the 4 best teams. Just put them in.
Yeah, the 13 people in that room are not the 13 smartest minds. They're watching every game every single week. They're not watching all these games.
No, screw Boo Corrigan and Jim Grobe.
They're not watching these games. Yeah, screw those ACC guys. They're not watching these games every week. They're not. They say they do. They don't.
No way.
They don't. They don't because they would have come away impressed by how Florida State has looked defensively the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like I said at the top, this should have been a feather in Florida State's cap when Florida State won the conference title with a true freshman quarterback making his first start and held Louisville to like 150 yards of offense. That should have been a feather in their cap, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. Alabama
got a circle the wagons kind of game for Florida State, and apparently it was a knock on their resume somehow.
And Michigan is getting the benefit of the doubt for winning their only 2 conference games in which teams look semi-competitive against them. They win those 2 and schedule nobody in the non-con, and they are rewarded with the number 1 ranking. Are we absolute? And look, I think Michigan is outstanding. I think Michigan is absolutely one of the best 4 teams in the country. We're absolutely sure they're number 1 when they didn't play anybody in the non-con. If Texas had beaten Oklahoma and Texas was 13-0, Texas would be ranked number 1 in the country. They beat Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia. Georgia was supposed to be the best team in the country. That's what Boo Corrigan told me this afternoon. But Georgia's not in the field, by the way. Georgia's not in the field. Just want to remind everybody.
Wait, hold on. They're the best team in the country, but we're looking for the 4 best teams, and they're not in the field?
And they're not in the field.
So wait, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
A lot of mental gymnastics.
Florida State, they're not good enough to be in the field of 4. We're going to talk about the 4 best teams. We're going to talk about Georgia being one of the 4 best teams, and we rank Florida State ahead of Georgia.
See, you guys are just trying to apply logic to something that's illogical. You got to stop doing that.
No. The logic is ESPN wants Alabama in the playoff.
That's it.
That's the logic.
That's it.
Is that ESPN is not going to let the playoff that ESPN owns, and by the way, they're not going to let the playoff selection show or the playoff rankings updates show, which they also own, they're not going to let any of that go off without the SEC being in the playoff.
That's
So I'm the dunce,
That's
Mike.
it.
Why did I ever think in a million years that the SEC was going to be left out of the playoff that ESPN owns when, by the way, the ESPN is just about to own the SEC? Why would I think that? I'm the idiot here. This is my fault. Why did I let this happen? Why did I do this to myself? This is the dumb part.
That's why, circling back to your initial question that started all this off earlier, that is why I am not surprised that Alabama got in and Florida State did not.
Congratulations, our sport is now ESPN.
You have TV execs and 13 people who don't watch all the games deciding who the best teams are that can compete for a national title. They're deciding.
Love
And
it.
for the people that say it's all going to get fixed next year, it's absolutely not going to get fixed next year. It's not. Okay, so the fourth best team, okay, did they get snubbed and now they're the fifth team in? Okay, great, fantastic. Seeding's going to matter because in the current format, in the 12-team format, there is a home game awarded to higher seeds. You're telling me that a game that could be played in Tallahassee for Florida State now has to be played in Tuscaloosa because you decided arbitrarily that one-loss conference champion Alabama is better than 13-0 Florida State, so now Florida State's got to go on the road and play Bama in Tuscaloosa? This is not going to end. This is not going to end. It's just going to be a seeding issue moving forward. Nobody gives a shit about the 12th team. Nobody cares. That's not where the discussion's going to be. It's going to be seeding. Seeding. That's all that's going to matter moving forward. You're going to have these dumb debates. Teams are going to get screwed in a different way. And you're going to have 13 people deciding who's going to be the top four teams in the because the top four teams are still going to matter. Some of the top teams are still getting buys, Joey. It's still going to matter who the top four teams are. It's going to matter a lot.
You want to talk about the bowl lineup, Mike?
Briefly, we'll do bowl previews briefly. I don't even know the bowl lineup because it was announced while my kid was eating dinner tonight. I have no idea who's playing where. I know Tech's playing in the military bowl. I'm gonna try to go to Scott. Do you want to go to the military bowl?
You're gonna have to talk to your sister about that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to my wife about that one too. I'll try to sell her on it.
Can we be real clear? Scott saying you need to talk to your sister, and you saying you need to talk to your wife.
Michael's
sorry.
sister.
Those are
Michael's
different.
sister.
Excuse me.
Michael's
Yes,
sister. Michael's sister is my wife, who at that point of the military bowl will be about 32 weeks pregnant. So that's why he needs to talk to his sister.
My wife, not to be confusing, but my wife, also named Caitlin, is different from my sister named Caitlin. Just want to get that out there, okay? Okay? This is not a West Virginia situation.
This is just normal Virginia. Okay, all right.
So let's start there. West Virginia is playing in the Mayo Bowl, Joey.
I was going to go chronologically. Yeah, well, sure. We'll start there. West Virginia is in the Mayo Bowl. They're playing North Carolina, so you've got Mac Brown versus Neil Brown.
Battle of the Browns. Which one's going to get fired first?
This is
Anxiety Bowl.
There were a couple of these that it really kind of felt like the ACC team got slotted for geographical reasons specifically. This is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I don't know. We'll get to this, how to handicap this, but like, by the way, that's December 27th. That's Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern in Charlotte. I lean West Virginia. I just think West Virginia might be more fired up. I think Drake May might opt out, like all this stuff, but we can get to that. And not this is pretty good from a branding standpoint, but like not necessarily that great from a football standpoint. I would throw.
Would have been
out there.
better to put Virginia Tech in there, have a backyard brawl in a bowl game. That would have been an intelligent thing to do, but we don't do intelligence, as we found out earlier today.
Yeah,
Joey, by
sport-
the way, West Virginia is playing in the Mayo Bowl because the SEC didn't have enough bowl-eligible teams. But
That's right. That's right. I mean, you have to respect that Alabama won the SEC.
Right.
You don't have to respect the fact that they didn't have enough bowl-eligible teams to fill their slots.
right.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's a moving target, Joey.
Move those goalposts, baby. Did I mention the Herbie tweet from 9 years ago? I don't even remember.
You,
We've been talking this
you
almost
did
a year
you
ago.
did in passing, but you didn't say explicitly what it said.
Oh, yeah. That was okay. So just to make sure I bring this up, as all this stuff was coming out this afternoon, one of the things that was mentioned was Herbstreit had a tweet from 2014 at Florida State fans who I guess were mad at him for saying something about, they might not make the playoff or something or other. He stated specifically in this tweet, if you win out, you'll be in the playoff. I don't know what you're upset about. Where's that energy, Herbie?
Forget that, Joey. Herbstreit had a tweet in October of this year saying if Florida State won out, they'd be in.
Oh,
so
move those goalposts, baby.
At
Move
some
'em.
point, man. At some point, you just got to come out and be honest with us, Herbie. I love Kirk Herbstreit. Love him. Can't make that any more clear. But at some
Do
point,
you love college
just gotta,
football or do you love ESPN, Kirk?
at some point, you got to be honest and just say you're shilling for your employer. Just say it. It's not that big of a deal. They're not going to fire you. You're all they got. They're not going to fire you. If Herbstreit leaves, everybody's going with him wherever he goes. What are people who? What, they going to stick around for Pat McAfee? Give me a break.
Thursday, December 21st at 8
Moving
o'clock on
on.
ESPN.
Yes.
It is the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl.
Oh, good.
Syracuse is taking on South Florida, who, as we mentioned, had a banger against Alabama earlier in the year. Yeah, sure. I don't know. That's fine.
So, I mean, because we're doing it on power ratings, you gotta take South Florida here. They played Alabama tough in September.
That's right. Alabama's a playoff team, Mike. That's a quality loss.
Honest to God, I do think Adam Parker said that South Florida's going to beat that ass. I totally agree.
They might. I don't know what South Florida is at this point. Syracuse, playing hard for an interim, but also might only be able to run the ball on offense. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Friday, December 22nd at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets taking on the UCF Knights. This is the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, whatever. They're playing this at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. So, sure.
A rematch of the regular season from a few years ago, right?
From 2017, that's right. UCF's national championship season, where they were
More than a few years ago.
it was on the schedule that they were supposed to play this game. They did play in the 2020 year, the COVID year.
That's what I was thinking. Yep.
Yep. I mean, I have issues with Georgia Tech going 5-3 in conference, first bowl game in 5 years. Fan base that it will travel a little bit to a bowl game. Getting a bowl game on December 22nd. Really?
Also in UCF's backyard.
Yeah. Right down the road.
That'll be an easy one for sure. That'll be easy.
Saturday, December 23rd at noon on ABC, the 76 Birmingham Bowl. Is this like the 76th? Like, have there been 75 beforehand, or Duke's taking on Troy?
Yeah,
Take Troy.
15 years from now, I'm going to be like, hey, remember the Birmingham Bowl in 76?
Take Troy.
Take Troy by a lot.
I was messing with you a little bit on Twitter earlier, Mike, that
Yeah.
I think apparently Hokies fans, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but
They're dumb as shit.
if if you're a Duke fan and you're like, man, like having to play Troy, like they're kind of beneath us, that's not the complaint you should be having. The complaint you should be
No.
having is we're probably going to get beat by Troy, and they might win that game by double digits. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to be close, I don't think.
Phillips 76. Thank you, Adam Parker, for that.
There you go.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Well, they forgot the first word in the bowl name, so there's that. What else we got? Wednesday, the 27th, the DirecTV Holiday Bowl at 8 o'clock on Fox. That's
Curveball,
the
Scott.
number 15 Louisville Cardinals taking on the USC Trojans, and that's in San Diego. Yeah, sure. Give me Louisville, I guess. We'll preview that.
Louisville plays defense, so
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, there's no way he plays in this bowl game, right?
Makes one of them, yeah. 2 o'clock on ESPN, the Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com. That is the Virginia Tech Hokies taking on the Tulane Green Wave. This is in the backyard of Virginia Tech. Tulane does not have Willie Fritz. this is what I was kind of messing with you, Mike. Is if Hokies fans, if you think that you are beneath that Tulane is beneath you, don't watch this game because this might be bad news for you.
I mean, if Michael Pratt plays, he is the second best quarterback Virginia Tech's played all year behind Jordan Travis. So.
As mentioned, 5:30 then on ESPN, the Duke's Mayo Bowl. That is North Carolina taking on West Virginia. We will keep moving. December 28th, Thursday, 11 o'clock on ESPN, the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. That is Boston College taking on the number 24 ACC SMU's Mustangs.
God, BC is going to die in this game.
I mean, what is this, 13 and a half?
Oh, my God.
This is an awful matchup for Boston College.
At least it's a home game. Basically.
At least it's a home game in a baseball stadium, but that's about the best I can come
I mean,
up
they
with
always
here.
they always listen. They always fill up the stands in Chestnut Hill, so definitely fill them up at Fenway.
There are a lot of these matchups, Mike. That these are bad matchups for ACC teams. Later that day, 2:15 on ESPN. Miami in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. This is in Yankee Stadium. Miami's taking on Rutgers. I feel like this is a decent, okay matchup for Miami, except Tyler Van Dyke's probably not playing. Like
Emory Williams is definitely not playing.
Bowl season's the best, Mike. I love it. 5:45 on ESPN that day. The number 18 NC State Wolfpack taking on the number 25 Kansas State Wildcats in the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Sure.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Where, by the way, I am pulling this up right now.
Hold on,
because
let me take a sip real quick because I just.
Did I text this?
Pop-Tarts, formerly the Cheez-It Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Formerly the Cheez-It Bowl. That's
Camping
correct.
World.
Camping before
Russell
that.
Athletic.
Still played in Camping World Stadium, correct. Yep.
That is correct. The Russell Athletic Bowl. What it used to be. Here it is.
So Dave Doran's going
found
to eat the Pop-Tart mascot or something.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Oh,
correct.
I know what you're pulling up, Mike.
That's correct, and I found it. So thanks for bearing with me there. Dave Doran was asked today during press availability after he found out his bowl destination. He was asked if he was going to take a bite out of the Pop-Tart mascot, because that's a thing that's going to happen. A la Duke's Mayo Bowl, something similar. He was asked if he was going to do that. He said, man, I guess I would have to, wouldn't I? I'm not going to be the guy that doesn't do that. What flavor is it going to be? The ball rep said, I'm not at liberty to divulge that information. And then Dave Doran, quickly back to him, says, or her, I don't know, that maybe I'm not at liberty to answer the question.
Get him, Dave.
Couple seconds pass. Dave Doran says, can I chase down the Pop-Tart with a nice bourbon or something like that afterwards? Is that part of the Pop-Tart experience or not? Fair question. To which the bowl rep responded with, I think we could arrange that if you want it. We will make it a little tasting. Love that.
What's funny, I thought Dave had said.
Kiss my ass. We can kiss my ass.
Oh, on loop. You kissed my ass twice.
Why does it default to loop? I don't know why. Anyways, okay.
We're not technology people.
That could be a fun game, actually. NC State, Kansas State. That'll be a fun one to watch.
It could be.
Friday, December 29th at noon on ESPN, the number 22 Clemson Tigers taking on Kentucky, the Wildcats, in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. That should be an easy win for Clemson, but who the hell knows?
Nothing's easy with that offense.
Yeah. At 2 o'clock on CBS, Notre Dame is taking on Oregon State in the Sun Bowl. I bring this up because that's an ACC bowl slot, which, yeah, sure, why not? Put Notre Dame in there. I don't know what the rules are.
Notre Dame is going to win that game by 1,500. Oregon State's coach has departed to Michigan State, Jonathan Smith. DJU announced he's transferring, so he will not be playing. I assume Hartman's going to play. Like, what is he going to do, sit out and work out for the NFL? I mean, give me a break. He's going to be like a 7th-round pick.
And then finally, the ACC's bowl season ends Saturday, December 30th at 4 o'clock on ESPN as Florida State's in the Orange Bowl taking on Georgia. What happened this year with the calendar or whatever that bowl season's over basically before New Year's.
They didn't want to do the New Year's 6 important games on New Year's Eve anymore.
Since when have we? No.
Are they doing it New Year's Eve? Or?
No. Like the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl are the 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
That's New Year's Day.
Mm-hmm. They're not doing on New Year's Eve anymore. They're doing New Year's Day. Yeah.
And then the next college football game after those 2 are over is the national title game.
No. How about the Outback Bowl and all that stuff? Is that on New Year's Day?
No, Citrus Bowl, New Year's Day. Fiesta Bowl, New Year's Day. Rely Quest Bowl, whatever that is, New Year's Day.
That's the Outback Bowl. That's the Outback Bowl.
Okay, all right, yeah.
All right, there's still those.
The end of bowl season, aside from the national title game, is New Year's Day. When did this happen? When did this start?
There were never a lot of games. It was like a couple of bad bowl
handful, games. Yeah, sure, but at the very least, I don't remember the last time that the ACC was done with bowl games before I woke up on New Year's Eve.
Evan Sandage, conflict with the NFL on Sunday, maybe.
So New Year's Eve is a Sunday. So the NFL does not care about your bowl games, does not care about what anybody else is doing with their life. The NFL just runs games when they would normally run games. Christmas, New Year's, whatever, who cares? I don't know. Yeah, this is a strange year from a bowl calendar standpoint, because I was looking at this and thinking about it, and that was part of what I was irritated with, is that you've got 3 ACC bowl games before Christmas. Like, that's a lot. That doesn't normally happen. And then, again, we're done by December 30th. That's very unusual.
Yep.
Yeah, it has to be with the NFL. It's a full NFL Sunday on New Year's Eve. So
yeah, it's got to be it.
Well, enjoy your SEC versus Big Ten New Year's Eve.
Is this confirmed? Verse and call. Is this just like a statement that Chad Bracey's making, like he thinks this is going to happen, or is this like confirmed? Do we know? Maybe Chad can actually answer that for us. I mean, it wouldn't surprise. First of all, like if it's not confirmed yet, would not shock me. Why would they play here? Danny Cannell said they should just. Danny Cannell's real mad online, which I understand. He's an FSU grad. I get it. Not confirmed. Okay, Chad. Chad says not confirmed. He just thinks that's going to happen. I agree. By the way, Chad, that wasn't a shot at you in any way. I just was wondering. Yeah. Oh, Danny Cannell said that they should just boycott the Orange Bowl, which would be hysterical. I mean it would be very funny. That. They're obviously not going to do that because of
too much money.
Money.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, money. There's too much money involved. They're not going to do that.
I mean, I still remember from, I guess it was 9 years ago that Georgia Tech went, and you see pictures of like the party on the beach, and there's like a gift suite, and I mean you can show up and you can take part in all that and benefit and all that. You could still completely mail it in for 60 minutes on the field because who freaking cares? By the way, keep in mind you're playing Georgia.
Yeah, I mean,
who has won 2 national titles in a row and now is not in the playoff. Might be completely willing to mail it in. Bunch of guys with NFL futures, whatever. So, like, that might be one of the most, call it unpredictable, neither team gives a damn bowl games of the season.
Did you see the screen cap of them? They're doing their Zoom press conference. Did you see Kirby and Norvell? Just like, neither one of them wanted to be there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Very funny.
It's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kirby, you earned it. You lost yesterday. Like them's the breaks. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Florida State deserves better. And again, I am not trying to defend Florida State's honor. I am not doing that. I am just defending the honor of like the sport, the conference, and my own intelligence of like, are you frigging kidding me with this?
I have one more thing. I don't mean to belabor this point. We've been beating a dead horse for an hour and a half. But what I want to say is one last thing, because I've seen some comments here in the chat about Greg McElroy. He is such a whiny, sorry son of a bitch. He was talking about now look, former Alabama quarterback, I get it, right? In the same way Cannell was salty about Florida State, McElroy was very, very happy that Alabama got in.
Got to go to bat for the Shield.
But Joey, listen, this was I'm sure you saw this today, or you tuned it out like I did, but I saw it after the fact. McElroy, within 2 minutes of each other, right? These two separate statements were made. Florida State doesn't deserve to be in the playoff because they wouldn't be competitive with Michigan. They didn't deserve the 4th spot, right? Because they don't have Jordan Travis, they wouldn't be competitive. So he says that, and that's why Alabama should be in. Okay? He makes that statement. No less than 2 minutes later, they talk about Florida State and Georgia being the matchup in the Orange Bowl. Joey, what do you think he said about Florida State then? Oh, this is going to be a fantastic matchup, a really good matchup, 2 really good teams. It's like, yeah, buddy, that's because ESPN is broadcasting the Orange Bowl. You got to hype it up. And by the way, Alabama is now the 4th team. You're an Alabama alum. Quit insulting our fucking intelligence. This is the precedent of the entire thing, right? Precipice of the issue, right? We're setting a terrible precedent with what we're doing here with the TV stuff, man. Terrible precedent.
We're looking for the 4 best teams. Georgia's one of the 4 best teams. They don't make the playoff. Florida State can't compete with the 4 best teams. Oh, but they'll compete with Georgia. Like my brain is breaking trying to, again. You're allowed to have your opinions. Don't have opinions that directly conflict with each other. That's where I'm just insulted by the whole thing. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm frustrated, sad, irritated, like, for the sport as a whole. Like, I don't know,
Adam
man.
Parker. Know anybody that could discuss what it's like to play quarterback at a subpar level?
Yeah.
Yep. His name's Greg McElroy. We put him on TV. That was an SEC infomercial. He's an SEC network guy. That was an SEC infomercial today for the playoff show. That was just a freaking disgrace, man.
I've honestly really enjoyed McElroy and his color commentary for a lot of the games that I've seen him.
Really good,
cover
man.
this year.
He's good at it. He's good at it, for sure. He's good at it. Nothing against McElroy himself.
But it's like today becomes
him and
like
Herbstreit.
SEC shill. I feel like he was maybe this way a few years ago, but has really kind of backed off of it. But today, like, really taking up the shield. Well, we've got to put the SEC champion in. Dude, no, we do not.
We don't. It's not in the criteria. We do not need to do that.
It's not.
Him and Herbstreit with that, man. 2 people I think very highly of. Like, I think McElroy is good at his job for all the stuff I just said. I think he's good. I think he's a sorry son of a bitch in this argument, but I think he's good at his job. I think Herbstreit is outstanding at his job, but I just can't defend that stuff today, man. Like,
how are we gonna have a playoff without the SEC champion? You're not
How
going
are we
to lose
gonna
to
do it?
Texas in week 2. That's how.
That's how. They lost on the field. They lost on the field. You couldn't put Bama in without Texas, but you could put Texas in without Bama. Committee chose not to do it.
Yep.
It's frustrating.
All right. I think that's all I got.
We're going to be recording
You feel
bowl
better?
previews. I don't feel better.
I don't really feel that much
to be
better.
honest with you. I'm glad that we both just built on each other's points for like an hour and a half, though. That was fun.
Yeah.
We're going to be recording bowl previews like we usually do, so be on the lookout for those. We're going to do some season recaps with folks this year. We have sponsorships and stuff now, so like we're held to a certain, we got to do that stuff. We were a little lazy with it last year. We will be doing season recaps with folks, and we'll probably mix those in with some of these bowl previews because, as you guys know, if you've been around a while, the bowl previews tend to be shorter, right? So anyway, be on the lookout for those. I have a feeling Joey and I will take a few days off. We've been going at this for really since like July, August. We've been going weekly. I think we'll probably take a full week off before we record again. But just wanted to keep you all apprised of what our plans are.
Yeah.
So
Keep it tuned here. We have done bowl previews in the past on several different types of schedules. We have done them all at once. We've split them up into 2 episodes. We've done them day by day. We've done them one by one. We haven't fully decided how we're going to do it yet. So can't tell you what we're going to do. But if you keep it tuned here, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on your podcasting app, whatever you're doing. We will get you prepped for all those bowl games coming up. And as Mike mentioned, also trying to do some postseason kind of recaps for the 3 ACC teams so far that are not in bowl games. That was Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and Virginia. So going to try to get those coming your way here in the next couple of weeks. But, again, time will tell with, kind of what the timing on that looks like. Might take a break and kind of recharge a little bit. But, again, keep it tuned here. We'll keep you updated as bowls are coming this way. And, talk through what happened with some of these teams that didn't make bowl games.
That's all I've got.
All right. You can find us on Twitter at FGRSJoey, at Mike McDaniel SI, together at BC Podcast ACC. You can find us on iTunes. Is that Apple? Whatever. Spotify, Amazon, wherever you find your podcasts on demand. Hit the follow button, the subscribe button, whatever. Leave a review. We'd appreciate those who do. You can send us an email with your questions, comments, concerns. The longest email address on demand. basketballconferencepodcast@gmail.com.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Mike, where else on the social medias?
Facebook.com/basketballconference. Rate, review. Find all of our podcasts there. We're on Instagram at BC Podcast ACC. And again, like Joey mentioned, youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast. Subscribe, please.
Mm-hmm. Please do. Please do. Mike, I think that's all I got. You want to come back and either recap a couple seasons or, I don't know, preview some bowl games?
We'll talk soon. I'll be less mad.
We'll see.
I'll still be mad, but
no promises on my end. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Scott, did we forget anything?
Nope. Let's check out a little spicy tonight for the first time, and that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Thanks to everyone who showed up in the chat Sunday night. Appreciate it.
Even the SEC shills.
Mm-hmm. Even you guys. You're welcome back anytime.
I'm surprised.
No,
ESPN,
they're not. I banned them, but it's okay.
I'm surprised ESPN let them off work and didn't have them going 24 hours a day.
What do you mean work?
Shilling. What do you mean work? Yeah. The product sells itself. That's why Alabama's in the playoff.
There you go.
God.
All right. Until next time, from Mr. Mike McDaniel, from Mr. Producer Scott, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you again very, very soon. And until then, go ACC.